Every developer, marketer, freelancer, honestly, every human has that moment when you realize you're spending more time managing your work than actually doing it. You know what I'm talking about. Replying to those unnecessary emails, sending end-of-the-day reports, updating spreadsheets, or just keeping yourself up to date with whatever is happening in AI today. Each one of these tasks takes about 5 minutes. No big deal, right? Wrong. Even if you have 5 of these tasks per day, times 5 minutes, times 5 days in a week, times 52 weeks in a year, that ends up being more than 100 hours per year spent on repetitive tasks. That's almost 3 full work weeks wasted. It's not productivity anymore. It's just digital babysitting. Hi, I'm Adrian, and today I'm gonna show you how to end that cycle once and for all with n8n. Because instead of doing the same repetitive, tedious tasks every single day, you can teach your computer to do those things for you. Imagine this: new emails automatically tagged by priority, reply drafts written for you, just waiting for your review, and instant alerts the moment something important hits your inbox. That's automation. It handles the boring stuff so you can focus on what actually moves you forward. Of course, you might have tried to automate your life before. Maybe you used some of the tools that promised freedom, but instead you spent more time fixing your automations than doing real work. It worked for a while, until it didn't. Been there, done that. And then there's that one app that limits you to just 100 runs a month. Or the one that hides simple logic behind a paywall. Or worse, calls customization an advanced feature. Or if you're a developer like me, you'll say, screw this, I'll just code it myself. So you spin up a Node.js script, add a few cron jobs, and host it somewhere nice. Now it's yours, your automation. It's powerful, flexible, and completely your responsibility when it breaks. And the cost? Let's not even talk about it. Before you know it, you've built automation held together by digital duct tape. It looks like a system until one bad API call takes the whole thing down. And maintaining it feels less like owning a robot assistant and more like you being its full-time tech support. It's not scalable, not intuitive, and no one else can keep it running but you. Only you. So let's be real. You're not making your money back by selling it either. So between this no-code toy and a custom-coded monster, there's been this massive gap. You either got too basic or too complex. There hasn't been a tool that's powerful enough for devs, simple enough for everyone else, and open enough that you'll actually own it. Until now. n8n is a visual automation tool that makes building workflows simple and intuitive. n8n stands for Node to Node, meaning Nodemation. It's a visual workflow automation platform that lets you connect apps, APIs, and logic visually. So under the hood, it works like a well-organized system. It's modular, event-driven, and easy to extend. Every block on this canvas, called a node, runs its own process. And all these nodes together are called a workflow. You can trigger workflows with form submission, new emails, webhooks, timers, or even other workflows. Those starting points are called trigger nodes. You can also connect it to apps, automate emails, update Notion pages, call REST APIs, or drop in some JavaScript code when things get complex. You'd basically spend more time thinking about what to do with it than actually building it. It's like having all your apps talk to each other exactly how you want. And sure, there are other similar tools too, but most of them are very limiting. Branching logic is tricky, handling arrays, loops, or API authentication often requires hacks, but with n8n, you get flexibility without compromise. And that's why lately, everybody's been talking about it. It's the perfect balance between a visual tool and full stack control. Everything just clicks together just the way you need it. I look at it as engineering made visual. And the best thing is, n8n is open source. That means that you can self-host it, you can modify it, you can scale it however you want, without limits. Okay, so n8n sounds cool, right? But wait, how do you actually use it? Do you visit a website? Is it a product? Who even built this thing? Let me clear up all of those things, and by the end of this video, you will have built your own super powerful, email automation workflow. So stick around until the end. See, n8n was originally built by a developer named Jan Oberhauser, and it's grown into a full open source company backed by a huge community of engineers, automation nerds, and creators. And n8n isn't just one website or app. It's a platform, a system that brings together all the apps, services, and automations you use in one place. You can run it anywhere, your laptop, a server, or the cloud, because it's open source and built entirely in Node.js, which means that you literally own your own automation stack for free. So let's talk about how you can use it, because there's more than one way to run n8n, and depending on who you are, one method is definitely better than the others. First up, local install. This is the most hands-on and customizable way to get started. You can install it with npm or run it using Docker, and in less than a minute, you've got your own n8n playground running on localhost. It's perfect for experimenting, building your first workflows, testing integrations, or just getting used to how nodes connect and pass data around. This setup is basically run a command, open your browser, and boom, your workflow canvas is ready. When you're done, just close the terminal, and that's it. The workflow is gone. Simple, clean, but no commitment. It's like a one-night stand with automation. Fun, but it's not staying for breakfast. There's no persistence, no auto start, no scheduling. So unless you plan to keep your laptop on 24/7 and hope it doesn't sleep halfway through your workflow, it's great for learning, but not for production. Next, you've got self-hosting, which is where developers start drooling. You spin up a VPS, install Docker or Node.js, set up your envs, add SSL, and connect a database for persistence. You deploy n8n like any other backend app. You own that automation server that runs 24/7. It's powerful, it's stable, and it's yours. But let's be honest, maintaining a VPS means that you have to handle updates, SSL renewals, server crashes, and database backups. It's fun if you're a developer who likes systems engineering, but if you're not, you'll probably spend more time fixing your automation server than actually automating anything. And then there's also n8n Cloud. This is where you stop worrying about infrastructure and start focusing on actually building automations. It's hosted by the n8n team. You just sign up, log in, and you're ready to build. They handle uptime, scaling, updates, and data persistence, so you can skip the DevOps drama entirely. You build, you test, you deploy, done. Zero setup, zero maintenance. So that sounds perfect, right? Until you check the pricing page. n8n Cloud is great, but it's not really cheap once you start running real workflows. You're billed based on executions, active workflows, and usage, which means that if you're building something big, testing ideas, or letting workflows run 24/7, your bill will grow faster than your automations. So yeah, n8n Cloud is amazing if you're running a few personal workflows. But if you're building something serious, that simple pricing starts feeling a lot like premium anxiety, which is exactly why I don't recommend it. Instead, I run n8n on Hostinger Cloud, and honestly, it's the best of both worlds. You get the freedom of self-hosting, but without any painful parts. Deploying n8n takes minutes. You can use their VPS templates in a few clicks. Hostinger gives you built-in SSL, daily backups, and server monitoring, so you don't have to babysit anything. And it's fast, like actually fast. Your workflows trigger instantly. And unlike other automation services, you're not paying per execution. You're paying one fixed rate for the server plan, period. So you get the power of self-hosting, the convenience of the cloud, and the peace of mind that you're not paying extra for every single click. So with that said, let's head over to Hostinger and spin up n8n. To set it up, you can click the Hostinger link down in the description. And even if you're not planning on running any automations right at this point, I would still recommend getting it because there's a huge Black Friday sale going on. So click the link down in the description, Then head over to Services, and then under VPS, you'll see Self-Hosted and Open Source n8n hosting. So click on it, claim this huge Black Friday deal, and I'll select the most popular KVM2 plan, which will allow you to run any kind of automation you can think of. So click Choose Plan, and since there are great deals happening right now, I'll go ahead and choose 24 months, which is also going to give me a free domain name for 1 year. Daily auto backup isn't needed for what I'm about to show you, and when it comes to selecting the server location, go and choose the one that is closest to you. Under the operating system, n8n should be selected, and then if you scroll up, right here under Order Summary, you can also enter a special JavaScript Mastery coupon code, which will give you an even bigger discount. So go ahead and continue, and very soon we'll start setting up your own instance of n8n. Once you're in, you'll have to create a root password. This will be used to log you into your virtual private server. In this case, I'll just generate a strong password. Make sure to save it somewhere safe so you can actually log into your server later on. And then click Next. It's asking us if we want to add a malware scanner, but I don't think it'll be needed in our case, so just finish the setup. This process will take about 5 minutes, so let's let it do its thing. And there we go, it's done. So head over to your VPS dashboard, and you'll see something that looks like this. Then to set up n8n properly, click Manage App and set up your n8n account. Once you create it, you'll be redirected over to your dashboard. You can also get paid features for free forever, so you can get a free license key or just skip it. And that's it. Very soon, we'll click this Start from Scratch button and start creating our first n8n automation. And just to make sure you don't run into any issues later on, let's make sure your n8n instance is updated to the latest version. First, head over to your hostingers panel under VPS, and you should be able to see that the status of your VPS is set to running. If it's not, head over to your email and verify your hostinger account. That should do it. Then click on Manage and click on the terminal button at the top right. Now don't get scared, we'll just run a couple of simple commands. The first one is to pull the latest version of Docker by running docker compose pull and then pressing enter. Once that is done, you can write docker compose down to stop and remove older versions. And then finally, to start the container, you can run docker compose up-d and press enter. And just like that, your n8n environment is ready. So far, you've learned about why n8n matters, how it fixes the things that other tools got wrong, and you even set it up on Hostinger Cloud, so you've got your own automation lab ready to go. Now, it's time to lift up the hood and see what actually makes this thing tick. At its core, n8n is all about automation. Taking boring, repetitive stuff that you do every day and turning it into clear, connected logic that runs automagically. But n8n also takes it a step further. It brings your automation to life in an interactive playground where you can actually see how your logic flows in real time. It's visual programming, and each step in your process is represented by a node. Every node is like a pre-built piece of code that you never have to write yourself. And when you connect them together, they form your workflow, a visual representation of how your automation runs from start to finish. A workflow in n8n is a series of steps that define what should happen, when it should happen, and how data moves between each step. Think of it like a flowchart for your logic, but one that actually runs. You can have different workflows for different tasks, one for handling emails, another for generating content, and another for sending daily reports. Each workflow runs independently, like its own mini system with a specific purpose. When a workflow is triggered, n8n executes it, step by step, from top to bottom, left to right, following the data through each connected node. And yeah, you can create branches, loops, merges, and conditions, all the logic you'd normally write in code, but built visually using nodes. So let's talk about nodes. Node is one of the core pieces that makes n8n what it is. Every action, every step, every process in n8n is considered a node. A webhook node listening for incoming data. A schedule node runs your workflow at specific times or intervals. A Slack node lets you send messages or interact with your workspace. A merge node combines multiple data sources into one. A code node lets you write custom JavaScript to manipulate anything you want, and so much more. In short, every node is like a little worker. Some fetch data, some clean it, some send it, and some just complain when you forgot a comma in your JSON. So, keeping that in mind, a workflow doesn't just run. Something has to kick it off. And that's where trigger nodes come in. A trigger node is a special type of node that starts your workflow. When you create a workflow, you'll immediately see the Add First Step button at the center of the editor. This opens up the Nodes panel, showing you different types of trigger nodes you can start your workflow with. So let's take a look at some of them. Head back within your Hostinger dashboard and then click Manage App. Once you're there, you'll be able to create your first workflow from scratch. And then right here, we can add our first step. This is opening up trigger flows. A trigger is a step that starts your workflow. So let's explore a couple of these different trigger nodes. There's the Trigger Manually node, which lets you start a workflow by clicking a button inside n8n. It's perfect for testing or for workflows you want to run on demand. Then there's the On-App event. This trigger runs your flow automatically when something happens within a connected app, like when you receive a new message in Gmail or a new row is added in Airtable. So if you click right here, you'll be able to see a bunch of different apps you can connect it to. Think different AWS data updates, Bitly for links, call.com or Calendly for calendars, chat triggers, ClickUp, Cloudinary for images, Contentful. It really supports almost every single application you can think of. Then, below the On-App event, there's also On a Schedule. You want to use On a Schedule when you want your workflow to run at regular intervals. For example, you can trigger it every day, or every hour, at midnight, or every third Monday at 3 p.m. It's completely up to you. Then there's On Webhook Call, and this one triggers your workflow whenever it receives an HTTP request, which is great for integrating with external apps or custom systems. We'll see this later in action. There's also the On Form Submission, and you can use this to generate and connect n8n web forms. So when somebody submits a form, the data is automatically passed over to n8n. You can also start a workflow with another workflow, which is super useful for breaking complex automations into smaller, reusable parts. This On-Chat message is also pretty cool. It triggers a workflow when a chat message is received, which is nowadays often used for AI-powered chatbots. And there are also many other ways to start workflows. So no matter what you're automating, whether it's a new email, form submission, daily tasks, or database changes, it all starts with a trigger. So for now, let's say that we want to trigger it manually. But then once your trigger fires, it's time for the action nodes to take over. These are the nodes that actually do the work. You'll find tons of action nodes within n8n. And using these action nodes, you can, for example, send a message on Slack, create a schedule on your calendar, fetch a data from an API, update a record in Google Sheets, reply to an email, and so much more. You can even chain multiple of these together. So for example, when something happens in Slack, you can, for example, close a channel, and then you can do something else after it. You're essentially building super powerful systems that handle your work automatically for you. Now, where n8n truly shines is data flow. Every node passes structured data, usually JSON, to the next one. So you can click on any node and literally see what data is moving through. But instead of me just telling you about it, let's really see how all of these pieces come together. Triggers, actions, data flow, all of it by building a small demo workflow, a weather fetcher. So to get started with it, we can clear everything we have right here and start with a completely clean workflow, which I will rename right here to Weather Fetcher, an appropriate name. Now, before you start writing your first workflow, let's have a quick tour around n8n Canvas. What you're seeing right here in the editor is where you build your workflows by connecting nodes visually. You'll drag and drop and link different steps right here within this editor. Then there's the nodes panel, which you can open by clicking the tab key to quickly go through it, or just by pressing this plus at the top right. As you already know, nodes are the building blocks of any automation. And this panel contains all the nodes for Gmail, Notion, Google Sheets, and hundreds more, so you can mix and match these to automate pretty much anything. Then in the middle right here, there's executions. This will later on show you all your past workflow runs, including status, duration, results, which is super helpful for debugging and monitoring automation history. And the third tab right here are evaluations. They let you inspect input and output data of each node when testing, which is perfect for checking if data is flowing as expected. Now back to the editor, you can also drop some sticky notes by pressing Command and S, allowing you to document or explain specific parts of the workflow. There's also the focus panel, which you can open by pressing Shift F or just pressing this button right here, which will give you more information about a specific node that is currently selected. The header is pretty simple. It includes your workflow title, tags, active inactive toggle, and the ability to share it, save it, and more. On bottom left, you have more things to modify your editor. So you can zoom it in, zoom it out, tidy it up, or zoom in to fit your entire workflow. And finally, right here at the bottom, you have the logs. So you can expand it right here by pressing L for logs, and then you can see exactly what is happening within your code. So now that you understand how this interface works, let's go ahead and build our first demo workflow. We can start by adding a manual trigger to kick the flow. So once you click execute, it'll run all of the following action nodes. Now, in this case, we're building a weather fetcher. So let's go ahead and add a node. And this one will be an HTTP request type of node, which is super useful for getting the data from an external API. It'll be a get method. And in this case, I'll use the endpoint from the API Open Medio site. You can just Google for Open Medio, and you'll see that this is a free weather API. You can try it out right here to get some of the features, maybe get the weather for your location. But in this case, I've pre-filled it in with latitude and longitude for New York, for example, and I'm expecting to get daily temperatures. I will leave this link in the video kit down below for you, so you can copy it, and so that we have the same output. You can paste it as a regular URL, but you can also head over to expression and then paste the entire thing within an object, like this. That'll allow you to enter some variables, such as date.now and so on, so we get the weather for the current date and time. Now, if you click execute, you'll see the results. You can see here that we get the latitude, longitude, and the time zone, elevation, daily time units right here, and then we get the daily temperature. You can also view this data in different formats, such as a regular JSON, a schema, which is a kind of a nicer look that gives you the types of different units, and then there's the table format. That's what makes debugging or exploring your workflow super visual and intuitive. So now that we have this data, we can head back over to the canvas because this step had been added. Now, let's say that we want our workflow to check whether it's cold or warm today. And then depending on that, maybe we want our smart home to turn on the heating or make it a bit colder. So I'll add a new node, and this will be a flow node, specifically an if node. So I will check if, and now we want to get the temperature. In this case, you can choose it from the HTTP request before, which is super useful. And I will expand it a bit so we can see it a bit better. We are looking for temperature 2M max 0, but a daily one. So this is daily, temperature 2M max 0. It looks like it's about 15 degrees. I think that's Celsius. So you can drag and drop it right here. So what we're checking, if this temperature is, we want to use the number functionality and say less than, and you can make it about 25. And that's the beauty of it. This is your workflow, so you can tell me what is warm for you. As a matter of fact, go ahead in the comments and tell me what is the temperature around your place right now. Keep in mind that this is in Celsius, so if you're using any kind of other unit, like Fahrenheit, you can then head over to the HTTP request and modify it so that at the end, you just say and you can set the temperature underscore unit to be Fahrenheit. If you do it like that and then re-execute the step, you'll see that the data will change. And now back within the if statement, you'll see that the temperature unit is set to degrees Fahrenheit, and now it's about 56, right? Pretty cool stuff. I'll bring it back to Celsius for myself, which it is like that by default. So if what is feeling warm for me feels a bit different for you, don't worry, it's most likely just a different unit. I prefer the warm weather. Okay, so I'll say if the temperature is less than 25 degrees, then we can execute this step, and we'll know what happens. We now have two different paths, if true and if false. So if the condition is true, search for a set or edit fields node. Within it, switch over to JSON, and then here we can choose which fields to set based on the data coming from the HTTP request. You can think of this as creating some variables that we can later on use. Just so you don't have to type it out manually, in the video kit down below, you'll be able to find this JSON that you can paste under the expression. And here you can see what the result of that will be. I want to log in the high temperature, the low temperature, and then also some forecast and weather advice. If it's cool, then we want to say something like it's cool or rainy, so bring in a jacket. This could be a cool automation for an Iron Man Jarvis AI-like clone, where you wake up in the morning in your mansion and then your AI is telling you exactly what to do.
Good morning. It's 7 a.m. The weather in Malibu is 72 degrees with scattered clouds. The surf conditions are fair with...
Once that is done, you can execute this step. You'll have to manually click the stop workflow right here because we never actually ended. And then if you head over here, you'll be able to see the output: high temperature, low temperature, weather code, and forecasts, which is like a friendly forecast message that we can reuse later. Now click on the three dots above this edit fields node and duplicate it. Then connect it to the false path right here. Head over into it, expand the JSON part, and you can replace the emoji right here for the today weather forecast, as well as the piece of advice. Instead of it's cool and rainy today, you can say something like it's warm and sunny, put on some sun protection, and bring your shades. Perfect. To be able to fully test it out, you'll need to change this to some other location that has a bit of a higher temperature, or instead, you can modify this if to make it less than, let's say, 10 degrees Celsius, which means that for you, even though it's a bit colder, it's still warm enough to be able to hit the warm workflow. And if I stop it, you'll see that now we're hitting the warm one. What you can do is rename it. So if, I'm gonna call this one cold, and I'll call the bottom one warm. Now let's execute it one final time. And as you stop with the execution, you'll see that it's fully executed. And then below the canvas, you can open up the logs to see the exact data being passed as input and the final output. And finally, open up the executions tab. Here, you can see all of your past runs, complete with timestamps, results, and even a screenshot of the entire workflow. Pretty cool, right? This is just a simple workflow, but we can take it a step further. What you could do now is connect it to an additional app, like automatically sending a weather forecast to your email every morning at 7 a.m. To make that happen, we'll need to integrate with Gmail. So let's talk about integrations. What good is an automation tool if it can't connect to the stuff that you actually use? n8n comes with hundreds of pre-built integrations, including Google Sheets, Slack, Notion, Discord, Airtable, Twitter, GitHub, ClickUp, Stripe, OpenAI, and the list goes on and on and on. And each of these integrations isn't just a single action. They usually come with multiple operations built in. So the Google Sheet node doesn't just add rows. It can read, update, delete, and even filter data. The Slack node, it can post messages, threads, files, DMs, create channels, and everything else. Other automation tools give you the light version of an integration. n8n hands you the whole API. But you're not just limited to the pre-built stuff. Because if a service has an API endpoint, n8n can connect to it. REST, GraphQL, even raw webhooks. You can hit any URL, authenticate however you need, and handle any response. Basically, If it's on the internet, n8n can probably talk to it. So when I say infinite possibilities, I'm not exaggerating. Now, let's take that idea for a spin. Let's update our weather fetcher to send the daily forecast straight to your inbox every morning at 7 a.m. Back within our editor, you can go ahead and add a new node and search for Gmail. Then select Send a Message. So now that you added this Gmail node, you need to connect it to our actual Gmail account. In n8n, credentials are secure connections that let your workflows talk to external apps and services like Gmail, Notion, or Gemini without exposing your login details or API keys directly inside the workflow. Think of them as a safe bridge between n8n and the tool you're integrating with. Once you've set this up, you can reuse the same Gmail connection anytime. No need to configure it again unless you're connecting to a different account. So we have to create a new credential. And to do that, you need to head over to console.cloud.google.com. Once you're there, you can create a new project or use one of the existing projects. If you create it, you can give it a name, something like n8n, and then create it under your organization. Looks like we'll have to call it n8n demo. Now the project is being created, and as soon as it is, you'll be able to select that project right here, and then go ahead and search for Gmail API right at the top. You can then enable it for that project. Once you do that, you'll be redirected to this page where you can click on OAuth consent screen and then click Get Started. You can fill up the form with your app name. I'll call it n8n demo. You can enter your user support email. For the audience, we can make it external because new users will be using this app. And then for contact info, you can enter your email address. Finally, agree to sell your soul and then finish. Once that is done, you'll have to create your OAuth client. So go ahead and choose the application type of web application and call it n8n-client. Under authorized JavaScript origins, you can add a URI, and this is where the magic happens. If you head back over to n8n, right here for you, you'll see a new OAuth to redirect URL, which you can simply copy, and then you can paste it, not here under authorized JavaScript origins. This is a common mistake. Rather, you want to paste it under authorized redirect URIs. That'll allow you to create your OAuth client ID. So go ahead and click Create. And then you can copy this client ID and paste it right here back within n8n. And we also need a client secret. It's easy to get it. You just have to click OK, head over to Clients, and then if you open up this n8n client, you'll be able to copy the client secret right here at the bottom right, and then you can paste it here. And just before we click Save, head over to Audience, and then add your email under Test Users. For me, it's going to be this one right here, and click Save. Now, back within n8n, you need to click Sign In with Google. Use the email you used within n8n and Google Cloud, and then click Allow. And there we go. Connection successful. This window will automatically close. Perfect. With that in mind, our connection is there. We're connected. So now we can close this, and back in the canvas, you can see that now we have this new node. Now we can explore additional branching. Considering that we have two if statements, we can connect both of these to send a message. Whether it's cold or warm, we don't care. We want to send over an email. Then we want to dive into this send a message node, and we want to configure it. Select the correct Gmail account, and then under To, you can enter your email. Under the subject, you can write something like today's weather forecast. You can also enter your name so it feels like AI is giving you your personalized weather forecast. And then under message, we can say something like, Adrian, here's the weather. Or what you can do here is make it an expression and then fill it in with a string that looks something like this. Today's weather forecast, temperature, high, low, advice, it's cool or it's warm. Right now it is static, but very soon we'll make it dynamic with the data flowing from the previous node. Now go back to the canvas, make sure the nodes are connected, and click Execute Workflow. As you can see, one by one, all of these workflows got triggered, and apparently we got an email. And check it out, you immediately get the today's weather forecast right to your email. It's a note to self because it's the same sender address. Today's weather forecast with a high and low and some personalized advice. And you can see that this email was sent automatically with n8n. A cool thing is that this didn't have to be an email. This could have been any kind of an automation, including a smart home that would, believe it or not, automatically turn on your thermostat based on the outside temperature. The possibilities are endless. But now we want this message to reflect real data. So let's replace the static text we added earlier with dynamic variables. I will remove everything we have here, and check this out. We immediately on the left side get the variables from the previous step. So what you can do is you can just grab the forecast because we crafted it before, and that's it. The only thing we can do to make it even better is to remove that this email was sent automatically by n8n, that is in the footer of the email, and you can do that by clicking Add Option, append n8n attribution, and then turn it off. Now, if you go back to Canvas, re-execute the workflow, you'll see that it'll succeed. And if you check your email now, and you can see the weather, I believe this is for New York, is sunny and pretty warm. And to wrap it all up, let's automate everything. We'll add a schedule trigger so this workflow runs every morning at 7 a.m. So delete this manual trigger, and instead, we will add a new schedule node. So search for scheduler or schedule trigger, and then simply trigger it every day at 7 a.m. We don't need an additional rule. You can just go back to Canvas. Here is the schedule trigger, and you can now just connect it. Now, if you click Execute Workflow, you'll see that the schedule node is now set to be executed at 7 a.m., but you can still run it manually anytime to test. So now, how do we actually activate this workflow? Well, it's super easy. You could almost do it with your eyes closed. The only thing you have to do is, first of all, save the changes, and then once everything looks good, you can simply toggle your workflow from inactive to active. Workflow activated. Your schedule trigger will now trigger executions on the schedule you have defined. Perfect. With that in mind, everything is running, sending you a fresh weather forecast every morning. Super cool, right? Okay, you built a simple automation, and hopefully it gave you an idea of all the possibilities that automations can do. But this one was super simple, let's be honest. If this happens, do that. It's simple, logical, yet boringly predictable. But what if your automation could think? What if it could summarize, evaluate, or even draft replies instead of just following fixed steps? That's exactly what AI agents are built for. They bring intelligence and reasoning into your automations. I'm sure you're already aware of all of the possibilities of AI agents. But here, think of an AI agent like an intelligent worker inside of your workflow. It takes input, thinks using a model, and performs actions automatically, usually through APIs or connected apps. So it's not just AI replying to prompts, it's AI inside the workflow with memory, logic, and autonomy. An AI agent can read context from a database like Notion, Airtable, Google Sheets, and then make decisions based on data or user input. It can trigger actions such as sending emails, posting content, or updating records, and it can even evaluate results and adjust next steps. So AI agents within automation software like n8n are basically ChatGPT on steroids. They allow you to do everything. You could code your own models, but with n8n, you get the best of both worlds. A visual playground where logic, memory, and model intelligence all come together with no heavy setup required. All right, now that you've got a solid grip on how n8n works, how nodes talk to each other, and how AI fits into the picture, it's time to actually build something real. We're gonna create an inbox manager, a smart automation workflow that helps you manage your emails more efficiently. It'll handle the kind of things that most people still do manually. It'll read through your messages, label them, organize your inbox, and even draft replies based on context. Basically, you're building your own personal assistant inside your inbox. And this is not just something that you can use yourself. It's something you can build and market to other people as well. I mean, who wouldn't find this helpful? It's the best way to make it in this age of AI. So here's the plan. We'll auto-categorize new emails. So every time a new email arrives, we will analyze and determine where it belongs. Maybe it's a support request, a client update, or a newsletter, and we'll tag it automatically. Then we'll auto-create new tasks so that if an email requires action, like a bug alert that requires an immediate fix, we'll automatically create a task in our project management tool like Notion, ClickUp, or whichever one you use, and auto-assign it to a developer. It can also draft replies, so we'll use AI to generate context-aware reply drafts. You can still review them before sending, but it saves you the mental load of writing them from scratch. So by the end of this build, your inbox won't just stay organized, it'll manage itself, and you will have learned how to build smart automations just like this one for yourself, your friends, your company, and anybody else who might be interested. Now, let's head over to our email inbox and take a moment to think about how we usually organize emails manually. When I sort emails in my inbox, I often look at things such as the sender. For example, emails from Netflix or Audible are subscription updates, so I know to group them together. Then I look at the subject line of an email, because newsletters usually have consistent patterns or keywords in the subject. And most importantly, emails from work, clients, or banks are high priority and should always be labeled important. So for our workflow, we need to create a couple of labels in Gmail. It's totally up to you. I'll start by creating a label for newsletter. I'll also create another one for subscriptions, one for important, which looks like it's already reserved as a system label, so we can just bring it outside of our list right here, all the way to the top. So we have inbox, important, newsletter, and subscriptions. Oh, and I'll add another one called monitoring. We'll use this one connected with Site 24/7 to give us real-time alerts about websites we're building. And later on, we'll build another workflow that automatically generates tasks, making sure that we address all importance issues immediately. Now, head back over to n8n and create a new workflow. Name it Inbox Manager. Within here, we'll handle all of our email automations. So first, let's focus on auto-categorizing all new emails that arrive at our inbox. We can start by adding our trigger node. So you can search for trigger nodes, but specifically in this case, it'll be a Gmail trigger. So click on Gmail and then go to the on message received trigger. Make sure to connect it to your Gmail account. We'll poll it every minute on message received, and we can turn off the simplify so we get more data. Now you can click on fetch test event. This will fetch the latest email from your inbox. Now back within the canvas, we want to add a new node. This will be a text classifier node, and its purpose is to classify new emails based on the labels we defined. So we need to classify our email based on a couple of things, such as the subject, email body, and sender details. So I will say subject, and then you can put 2 pairs of curly braces to define a variable, and within it, we can look for a subject. So you can search for subject right here, and you'll see it under subject. There we go. So you can just drag and drop it right here. Subject is JSON subject. Then we can have the email body. Once again, you can open up a variable and start typing $JSON dot text. So this is the text of the email. You can see that I was setting up Site 24/7 for this tutorial, so that is the last email that I got. After that, we can choose the sender email. In this case, we can get it from, well, you can go ahead and search through the entire table of the email, or you can just type $JSON dot from dot value 0 dot address. And this is how we can get the sender address. And we can also get the sender name by heading over to JSON dot from dot value 0 name. So now we have everything. Looks like this one came from site247.com. So now that we have the text to classify, we have to add the categories. Each label we added within our inbox will be one category. So I will call the first one monitoring. And for the description, you can say something like classify any messages as monitoring where the sender's name or email matches any of the following: eval site247 or site247. Then I'll add another category and I'll call it priority. Here, we want to add a description something like this, so feel free to type it out as I read it out. Classify any message as priority where the sender's name or email matches any of the following. Maybe it's the sponsors. So for example, in this case, that will be Team Hostinger. For you, it can be something completely else, like other emails that you consider a priority. And then I'm saying classify any message as priority where the subject contains the keyword JSM priority. So if somebody sends an email with this title, then it'll automatically get sorted in that category. And make sure that you have this category created within your inbox. So back here, you can create a new label and you can call it priority. I'll put that in capital letters. Then I'll add another one, which I will call newsletter. I think I use lowercase letters for that, as well as for monitoring. So I'll use lowercase here as well. And then here, you can say something like classify any message as newsletter where the sender's name or email matches any of the following. And now here, you can go through your inbox and search for some of the emails that you want to put in this newsletter category. I know that I have a couple, so I will just go ahead and paste them here. That's going to be dribble.com, daily dev. We can also do Notion, Neon, Grammarly, Cursor, AppWrite. It can be a lot of different things. So go ahead and just put them all here. And in the same way, at the end, you can say something like classify any message as newsletter where the subject contains the keyword JSM newsletter as well. Or in this case, you can put your name and newsletter here. And please take some time to add a couple more categories where you're going to provide explanations of how it should classify it. Think about how you use your email and which emails bother you the most and which ones you want to categorize a bit better. Then, based on those categories, provide a category name and explanation of what you want to put in there. You can think of this classifier node as your workflow's decision maker. So instead of writing dozens of if sender is this, then label is that conditions manually, the classifier uses an AI model to look at the email content, the subject, sender, and even the message body, and decide what type of email it is. So even though I was very precise in this case by telling it exactly which emails are my newsletters, you can just tell it to figure out what a newsletter is and then categorize it as such. So it doesn't just follow the fixed rules, but rather it understands context. Now, the last part to make this work is to choose a model, and you have to click this plus button at the bottom to add it. You can choose from all of the models that ever existed, but in this case, I'll go with Google Gemini chat model. And then here, you can create a new credential. To get it, you'll have to head over to aistudio.google.com, head over to Get API Key at the bottom left, and then create a new API key. You can name it something like n8n, and you can select a cloud project, and you can create a new project. And then you can just copy the API key. If you head back, you can paste it right here and click Save. Once that is done, you can choose the model of Gemini 2.5 Flash. In this case, I'll be using the Gemini 2.5 Flash model, and you can go back to the canvas. Now that we have this text classifier, you can see how well this looks like visually. You have the Gmail trigger going into the text classifier, connected to Google Gemini chat model, which classifies the text and then sorts it out in as many categories as you want. It can be monitoring, priority, or newsletter, or you can add so many more. Now, if you toggle the workflow to be active, so we can test it with real data. Now, to test it, you can send yourself an email with JSM priority in the subject line. Or we could add something like classify any message as priority where the sender's name is, and now here you could put some important people for you, or we could say classify it as priority if it seems important. This makes sense because you're not just working with if and else rules. You're working with a smart AI model which can figure out if something is important. In this case, just to be 100% sure, the subject line will contain JSM priority, so it gets categorized properly. So back within Gmail, let's send an email to ourselves. I'll use my JSM email that I used as a profile connection when I was first integrating Gmail into n8n. This is the account that this n8n automation is currently attached to. And I'll enter a title something like "This is urgent," and then I'll even add the JSM-priority tag in the title. So if you need to urgently reach me, you know what you need to do. And I'll say something like jsmastery.com is awesome. And let's go ahead and send it. Once it is sent, you'll see that you'll get it straight to your inbox. And then back within n8n, for now, we can manually execute this workflow. This way, you'll see that the text classifier node is running. It's consulting with the Google Gemini chat model. And once it is done, you should be able to see the workflow executed successfully notification, and priority should light up green. If that's not the case, you might need to rerun it, as it might not have already gotten the latest email that we sent. In this case, you can see under the priority branch, we have our latest email delivered to JavaScript Mastery. And in the title, it contained "This is urgent, JSM priority." So you can see that it sorted it as a priority right here. Now that everything is working as expected, let's add the nodes that will actually add labels to our emails. So for each one of these nodes, specifically starting with priority, I'll add a new Gmail nodes, and specifically, I will search for add label to message action. Here, you can rename the node to something like priority. Under operation, add label is already selected, and now we have to choose the message ID. Thankfully, we already have it from our text classifier node. And then from the label names, you need to select a category or a label that you've created before within your Gmail account. And now keep in mind that it has to be the same Gmail account that you use to authenticate the connection between n8n and Google. So if that is the correct account, and if you've sent that email to your account, keep in mind that I've made a mistake. I used a different one, so now I fixed it. There should be a label the same as the one you've created within Gmail. So select it and click Execute Step. And you can see that now a priority label will be added to this specific email ID. So if I head back to the canvas, you can see Add Label to Message. We can also rename this one right here to something like Priority. And you can see that now the priority text classifier actually adds a priority label. Once that is done, you can duplicate it by pressing Command or Control D, or just right-clicking it and then selecting Duplicate. And we also want to add it to monitoring, as well as the newsletter. So if you duplicate it 2 times, connect it over to monitoring and newsletters, and then head over into each one of these blocks, rename it to monitoring, and most importantly, change the label right here. It's no longer priority, but rather it'll be monitoring. So select it and go back. There we go. And finally, at the bottom, we have the newsletter. We all have plenty of those. So change the name right here at the top to newsletter, and then add the newsletter label. Perfect. Now that you've done that, you can save your workflow because it's working. This text classifier node is successfully labeling your emails. How can I be sure? Well, back within my email, you can see that even though my email remained within the inbox, you can see that it now has a priority tag. So if I switch over to priority label, you'll see that this email will be there and tagged with priority. Okay, the priority email is still in my inbox, and that's how I want it to be. I don't want it to be sorted under a label and be removed from here because I need to respond to it. But talking about newsletter emails, let's receive one email that is from our newsletters, which we don't always want to have at the top of our inbox, cluttering our view. So to label an email as a newsletter, we can see how we're classifying it as a newsletter. If you head over to the category of newsletter and enlarge this text right here, you can see that I gave it a couple of examples. You could also say, classify any message that you think sounds like a newsletter as a newsletter. But then, just for the purposes of this demo, We have a way for sure to get it classified as a newsletter, and that is to provide JSM newsletter in the title. So if I head back right here and I compose another email to myself with the subject of hello, JS Mastery Weekly here, just as an example of a newsletter. And we can also label it as JSM newsletter. And then we can write something random and go ahead and send it. If you do that, this email should automatically be labeled as a newsletter. Right now, the execution is happening every minute, so I'll go ahead and save it, but I will re-execute it so we don't have to wait. This is gonna run it for our last received email, and as you can see, it successfully gets categorized as a newsletter. So within Gmail, you can see that this email just received a newsletter tag. Now, let's say that you wanna clean up your inbox by hiding all emails labeled as newsletter, so only the important ones stay visible. Those emails won't be deleted, they'll simply be moved out of the inbox and can still be accessed anytime by clicking on the respective labels. To do that, we can head back over to our workflow, and we need to add a new node that removes a label. So search for Gmail and search for remove label from message. Now, you can see that this node right now is not wired up to any of the previous nodes, so we cannot get the message ID of the email. But there's one handy feature in n8n, which is the ability to pin the output data, letting you test nodes without having to rerun the entire workflow every time. So head over to the Gmail trigger, which provides us the data in the first place, and then at the top, you can see the pin data, which means that the node will always output current data instead of re-executing to make sure it's pinned successfully. So now that we've fetched the data once and pinned it, we can go ahead and hook up the remove label from message to our newsletter, because that's the only label that we want to remove from inbox. Then if you head over into it, you'll now see the data. We want to get over the ID of the email, and then we want to remove a label. In this case, we're selecting the label to remove, and it'll be inbox. Now you can save it and click execute workflow. It'll run through the text classifier, classify it hopefully as a newsletter, and you can see that it even went this far, so it removed the label from the message. Back within Gmail, make sure to refresh, and you'll see that the email got removed from inbox, but it is still right here under newsletter. This means that we're that much closer to making your inbox manager fully functional and actually allow us to tidy up our email. But wait, you might also have hundreds, if not thousands of emails that were previously sitting for years in your inbox that you also want to classify and tidy up. You don't want to do it just for the emails that come from this point onward. So I'll show you how we can fix that too. I'll show you how to categorize all the emails. Before you proceed with the next step though, make sure that your text classifier is nicely sorted out. The more time you spend fixing up these categories, adding additional rules on when it should sort it where, maybe go ahead and add even more labels and categories. Make sure that the prompts that you write right here are good so they get classified correctly. Once you do all that, you can proceed with the next step, because more info we gave it, the better the categorization will be. So right now, we need to highlight the entire workflow and then copy the nodes. You can just press Command or Control C. Once you do that, you can simply paste it right next to this one that we have. But this time, we'll replace this Gmail trigger, which is a manual trigger, to another trigger also coming from Gmail. But this time, we'll replace this automatic Gmail trigger with a manual trigger. Let me show you what I mean. I'll go ahead and add a new node. And this time, as I said, it'll be a manual trigger. Then I will connect it with the Gmail node. And specifically, this node will get many messages. This limit right here is how many emails you want to fetch. As I said, this might depend on you. You can start slow, see how well it categorizes it, then tweak the workflow a bit more, and then increase it a lot more. I'll go and filter the last 10 emails because I sent myself some fake emails to replicate the behavior of how most of us use emails. I have some priority ones, some newsletters, some monitoring ones, and so on. Once you do that, you can head back over to the canvas and connect this get many messages with manual trigger, which you can then connect with the text classifier. You can then execute this manual trigger by clicking execute workflow. You can see that it's going to get all the messages, and it's going to classify them one by one, and you'll be able to see the magic happen in real time. Hopefully you modified it a bit more so you have a couple more labels. It's doing its thing, running all the emails. You can see I gave it a limit of 12, so it ran all 12 to the classifier. And even though it said it successfully executed the workflow, it looks like it got stuck on the text classifier. It did not actually add or remove any labels. So if you head over to the text classifier node, you can see why. The data we're passing in is all coming as undefined. Even though it seems like from get many messages, we are getting the, what do we need? We need a subject. So right here under subject, oh, here it is. So if we drag and drop it, oh, looks like this subject starts with a capital letter S, whereas the one from before starts with lowercase letters. That is a bit weird. I'm not sure why these two nodes provide us different data. The initial Gmail trigger provides us with lowercase letters, whereas this get many messages node provides us with uppercase letters data. That's totally okay. I'll go ahead and fix it. And it's pretty nice how the n8n interface automatically tells us what is happening. Let's see if I got that one right. No, it's not text in this case. The body is actually labeled as a snippet. So I will remove this text right here and drag and drop the snippet. Sender email, I believe, should be here, and this time it is a simple from. And when it comes to the sender name, looks like it's already included in this from right here, so we'll just use 1 for saying sender. Perfect. So now that we're getting the right data, we can go back, and now we can re-execute it. So I'll just click execute workflow, and once again, it'll get all the emails, and hopefully this time, it'll classify them correctly. And there we go. Check this out. Out of the total 12 emails, looks like 2 went to monitoring, 4 went to priority, and 5 got labeled as newsletters. So if I now head back over to my inbox, first of all, you can see that there's fewer emails waiting for me to respond to them. And second of all, they're all properly tagged. So if I want to first dive into priority, I can, or maybe I have some downtime and I want to check out all the newsletters. I can do that too. Or maybe I want to check out my logs to see whether everything is fine with the website I'm running. Either way, my email is so much cleaner and so much easier for me to get through. And now that our emails are organized, we can also keep our workflows organized. n8n has a great feature called sticky notes that lets you visually group different workflows together, making it easier to identify at a glance. So let's add some sticky notes to now these 2 workflows. You can click on the Add Sticky Note icon or just press Shift-S. You can then position it behind our workflow. Let's go with this one first. You can then enlarge it, change the color to something like blue, and add any details by double-clicking on it, such as say something like auto, categorize, new emails, and then we can also add some kind of a description to it, saying something like assign labels to each email to categorize and keeps inbox organized. So now you have properly documented your workflow for new upcoming emails. But here we have our second workflow, which is used for doing it for our entire inbox, including the previous emails. So you can just create a new sticky note, enlarge it right here. And then for this one, you can just copy to say something similar that we're saying here, but instead of new, we'll say existing emails. And the same thing will happen right here with the description. Now we can save it because you've successfully automated the categorization and labeling of every new email. Congrats. I just went back to my inbox to see what else can we automate, and I noticed there's a new email alert from Site 24/7 notifying me that JS Mastery Pro is down. That's definitely not good. I'm using Site 24/7 to monitor JS Mastery Pro. It's the most important website for JS Mastery, where we launch all of our courses. So conveniently enough, the email already got tagged as monitoring, which is great and makes it easy for me to attend to it quickly. But it made me think, how can we take it a step further by automatically creating a new task in whichever task list system you use so that whenever a new alert comes in, we automatically assign it to somebody to fix it? Before I show you how we can build that automation, let's take a look at Site 24/7. I'll show you how we can use it to detect the real issues in our apps and send alerts that our workflow can respond to. And I already told you that we're using Site 24/7 for JS Mastery Pro to make sure the site is running and everything is working well. But it actually does so much more than that. Site 24/7 is a cloud-based monitoring platform that keeps an eye on all the critical parts of your app. Basically, it watches your systems, so you don't have to. And if something goes wrong, it sends us an alert. Everything starts with a monitor, like a website URL, a server, a database, or even an API endpoint that you want to keep track on. Each monitor performs periodic checks, like uptime checks for a website or performance checks for a server. And if a check fails or crosses a certain threshold, an alert is triggered, and Site 24/7 can notify us in multiple ways: emails, SMSs, push notifications, Slack, or even via webhooks that we can plug directly into our workflow. And the best part is that we can use that webhook within n8n to trigger some automations. That means that if your app crashes at 3 a.m. or your API suddenly slows down, Site 24/7 is the first to know, and we can trigger a smart home automation using n8n that'll turn the lights to bright red in your entire house and start playing some loud music, so you can wake up and fix it. Just kidding. As you know, with n8n, you can do anything. So let me show you how we can hook it up with Site 24/7. First things first, click the link down in the description and register. You can use your email or any of the providers. Setup for website monitoring is super simple. Beyond uptime monitoring, Site 24/7 also offers a lot of other stuff, such as website monitoring, server monitoring, application monitoring, even cloud and virtual machine monitoring, and so much more. We'll explore some of these tools in upcoming courses. For now, let's focus on website monitoring. So head over to Add Monitor, and then choose Website. For the web page URL, paste the URL of a site that you want to test. In this case, I'll paste the URL to the newest course on jsmastery.com. It is this landing page right here for mastering testing. So if you haven't started testing your app so far, well, now is the time to start. You can go ahead and check out the course on jsmastery.com. But yeah, that's the website we'll be testing because I want to make sure it's always on and running. So I will give it a name of Test Course Page on jsmastery.com. You can put any kind of a website that you have, maybe your personal portfolio or another application you want to monitor. You can keep the rest as default and click Save. Now back on the monitor list, you should be able to see your monitor. Now you can head over to your home, and under the 3 lines right here, you can select Poll Now, which will run this monitor. And then you'll be able to see whether your site is up or down. In a couple of seconds, polling will have started. And then if you click on it, you'll be able to see all the results. No outages occurred, 100% availability, 4 seconds response time. It actually tested it from different locations, and you get all the important info that you need right here. Now, let's say that we want to purposefully throw an error. We can do that by going to these 3 lines and then clicking Edit, and we can change the URL to an invalid one, such as adding an S at the end, saying Complete Next.js Testing Courses, and then click Save. If you do that, you can repoll the test or the monitor, and in about a minute, it'll give us an alert. There we go. One site is down, and if you click on it, you'll be able to see the summary of what happened, but also the complete information about the error. It tried to reach the website from these different locations, and it looks like it failed with a 404 status code for every single one. You can also check out the inventory, the log report, and more. And this will also alert you via email. So it is great to see that our n8n automation works and that this email got its monitoring label. But we can go a step further than that. I want to be able to have some kind of a task tracker on Notion. I love using Notion for tracking all of my projects, so having a table that looks something like this would be super useful. Whenever an alert happens, I want to add a new row in the database, assign a developer, and then also set the priority and a description. To achieve that, we can head back over to n8n. I'll head back over to my account, and we'll create a new workflow. Open up the node panel and search for webhook. Webhook starts the workflow when a webhook is called. So in this case, we want to make it an HTTP post request because it'll actually submit some data. The path will be set to site 24/7. And here you're going to get a test URL as well as a production URL. In this case, since this is a real working webhook and our automation will be running in production, we want to copy the production URL. Now go back to site 24/7 and head over to admin settings. Then at the bottom left, you'll be able to see third-party integrations. Then you can find the webhooks and click integrate now. Under the integration name, you can enter something like n8n webhook. Under the hook URL, you can paste the production webhook from n8n. For me, it looks like this. You can make it a post request, and you can say post as JSON, so we'll forward some data through this webhook. Under the user agent, you can say site 24/7 monitoring. And when it comes to trigger alerts for monitor status change, which is the last option right here, we want to turn on all three: down, trouble, and critical. Now you can save it. And back within third-party integrations, you should now be able to see this new integration of webhooks, and you can press this play button to trigger a test alert. It fails. If I click view details, it seems like the configured URL is not found on the server. Okay, I think I know why that might be. So I'm going to go back to Canvas and I will actually save it and make it active. So that way, it'll actually be able to find that production URL from this webhook within the workflow. So I will now just retest it. And this time, we get a success. Back within the editor, we can add an if node to check the status. So I will say nodes, if, and now we're looking for if the status is down or error, we want to create a task in Notion. So we have to execute the previous nodes to be able to get the data. Now you'll see that it's waiting for a trigger node to execute. And if you go back to the canvas, it's saying waiting for you to call the test URL. So let's do just that. I'll take the test URL right here, copy it, and then when I'm adding third-party integration, I'll add another webhook, and I'll paste the test URL right here. So I'll say integration webhook testing. We will again make it a post request as JSON and turn on all of these three monitoring status changes and click save. So now we have both the n8n webhook and webhook testing. So if I activate testing, it'll say failed. But then if you actually make it listen for the test event, you have to click this button, head back and play again, it'll say success. And this will give you the output data. So if you now head right here, you'll see that the if statement will have received all of this test data, which is exactly what we wanted. So now right here under the body of the data, you'll get the most important thing, which is the status. So I'll say if status is or contains, in this case, we can use a string that contains something like the word down, or we can add an additional condition, or if the status contains the word error, in that case, we want to create a new row in Notion. And keep in mind that this doesn't have to be a new Notion document. Notion is just one of the integrations on n8n, but you can also do any other to-do manager that you like using. For me, it gotta be Notion. So I'll create a new page, and then at the bottom, you can turn that page into a database. And then instead of making it an empty database, Notion already provides a handy tasks tracker template. So you can click on it and click continue. We can keep this as it is and click done. Then we can replace the due date with created date, as well as add a new task type of monitoring. And I will also remove all of these demo tasks. This means that we have our database. So I will call this monitoring database, and I will hide the description. Here, we're waiting for some new tasks. Now back within n8n, if our monitoring status is either down or error, we want to head over to this true part search for Notion, and create a database page, which is basically a new entry in the database. First, you'll have to create your Notion credential by clicking here, and you can open up the docs. Once you're there, search for a link when it comes to Notion integration dashboard, and click on a new integration. You can enter the integration name of something like n8n monitoring, and you can add your workspace. For the type, we can keep it internal, and if you want to, you can also add a logo. Click Save, and then configure integration settings, where you'll be given your integration secret. So go ahead and copy it, and once you have it, you can simply paste it right here within n8n. And click Save. Now, we have our Notion account that is connected, and we want to connect it to a database page. Specifically, we want to create a new row in the database, and then you can search for your database right here. But it won't show just yet. What you need to do first is head over to your monitoring database, click the three dots at the top right, head over to Connections, then search for n8n monitoring created by me, and you can click Confirm. This will give n8n the power to modify the database. Then if you head back, you can go back to the canvas and save it and reopen the Notion node. And then you can select a monitoring database table. It should be right here. You can give it a title of something like Site Monitoring Tracker, and we don't need to simplify it. We want to get the raw data. So the first property that we'll add to our list is going to be the task name. The task name will be static. It'll always say something like fix, and then we can put it in square brackets where the user later on can determine what the issue actually is, and we'll say fix issue. Then we'll modify the status. So I will add another one, which is going to be the status, which we want to set to not started. Then I'll add another one, which is going to be the assignee. And then under names, I will simply add myself. I'll add another one right here, which is going to be a priority. Since this is a monitoring issue and something is not working, the priority will be set to high. And finally, the task type will be set to monitoring. We can also add a description of the task, which will be in rich text. And here we can say what is happening. But to be able to do that, we need to extract the data from the webhook. So I'll say execute previous nodes. We'll get back the data. And we can say something like page is, and then render the status of that page. So I'll search for the status, and it'll say down or up. In this case, it'll say page is down. There we go. Then we can do a dash and render the incident reason. So if you search for incident reason, you'll see it right here. Page is down because service is unavailable. If you want, you can also render additional details, such as the incident time and more incident details. But I'll actually use those within additional properties. For example, I'll modify the created date and set it equal to the current date and time. You can do that easily in n8n by turning it into an expression. And here you can define that as a new date. And we can even modify it to locale string. And we can pass in, for example, EN-US if you want to get it in a human readable US format, something like this. And you can add more properties in the description. You can basically choose whichever data pieces you want to get from this webhook, be that the monitor group, monitor name, alert time, monitor dashboard, and so much more. For now, I think I have enough. So I'll go ahead and click execute step. And you can see that the node got executed successfully. And this should actually create a new row in a Notion database when an error happens. So if I head back right here, you can see that I created one accidentally, but there is one that is real that is created right now. Now, for some reason, our description is empty, even though right here, we added this status and the incident reason in the description. Oh, look, there's an issue here. I entered this value, which now I'm going to copy and remove as a type. The type should actually just be text, but then under text, we can enter this additional expression. And here you can drop in anything. You can say things like monitor name and then drop it here. Monitor dashboard, right? If you quickly want to fix it or if you want to learn more, you can say learn more here and then drop in this link where you can learn more. And there's all of the additional stuff that you can add. So for now, I'll re-execute it. And then back within the dashboard, you get more information within the description. And notice how if you open up the task, it is actually empty. There's a way to add stuff there too, and that is under blocks. So you can add a new block of paragraph, and you can make it rich text or something, or you could even make it something like H3. And then you could add a text of here is the issue. And then you could add more text, like additional pieces of text or paragraphs or even full new blocks, where you can then re-render the dashboard link so the devs can very easily go there and try to find the solution. Now let's test the entire flow one more time. What I'll do is head over to alarms and delete this existing alarm. That'll make sure that we can just re-trigger another email and another webhook call. Then you can head over into this monitor and edit it back to working state, and then click Save. Once you do that, we will re-edit it one more time to a broken URL, and click Save. And then you can poll it again to make sure that it recognizes that it's working again before we purposefully throw an error. Now, if you head back over to your inbox, you should be able to see that there is a new monitoring email that the test course page is up. So finally, I will edit it one more time to purposefully throw an error with a wrong URL, and I will repoll it once again. This time hoping for an error email, as well as an n8n webhook call that'll then verify that we indeed are working with an error or a down status, and it'll then create a new row in a Notion database. In about a minute, the email should be here. You can see that the website is not working on devices from all of these different places. And now if you head back to n8n under executions, you'll see that I have one error execution. That's because I forgot to save the entire workflow before making these changes on site 24/7. But then when I saved it and redid the same thing again, you can see that now it succeeded, which means that a webhook has been triggered and n8n forwarded it over to Notion. So as a final check, you can see it right here. We have a new issue with a bit more complete of a description, now saying that a request URI does not exist with a page of 404. And if you open it up, you can also get a link to the summary of the entire issue that was monitored by site 24/7 for us, so our developer can easily fix it. So you've successfully implemented your second n8n workflow. This time, starting with a webhook, which is a trigger from a third-party application, in this case, site 24/7, for monitoring, and you connected it to another third-party service, in this case, Notion. Great job. Now, what else do we want to automate in our inbox? We've labeled them and categorized them. But there's still one thing that eats up most of the time every day: replying. Not every message deserves your attention, but the important ones, those need a thoughtful response. So in this part, we'll automate that. Back within our inbox manager workflow, where we have those two workflows, we want to explore another type of a node, and that is going to be a set node. We use a set node to create, change, or remove fields within the data that's flowing through our workflow. Think of it as a data formatting step. So what you can do is dive a bit deeper into our auto-categorize new emails workflow. I'll push this one to the side and provide us some more space for this one. Then click on a plus icon on the priority label and search for edit fields. Then you can open up the Gmail trigger and you can drag and drop some fields right here. I want to get the thread ID. We can also drag and drop the second one, which is the subject of the email. Then the third one can be the actual text. Let me see where I can find that. Text is right here. And then finally, we can have the sender, which in this case is coming from the address. So right here, I will find the from field, and it has a value 0, address, which I want to drag and drop right here. And I will rename this over to sender. Now you can go back to the canvas and see that this edit fields is connected so that it actually edits some of the fields for all the priority emails. And now we need an AI agent that will read through the content Determine if a reply is needed, and then generate a context-aware draft email ready to send. So click on the plus after the edit fields and search for an AI agent. Source for prompt, you can say define below. And then for the prompt, I actually took some time to think about the prompt that would work best in this case. I'll provide it to you right in the video kit down below, so you can copy it and paste it here. It goes something like this. Analyze the context of the message. And then we provided the actual context. Then determine whether the message genuinely requires a reply. If it's just a newsletter, we don't need to reply. And now that I think about it, recently when I was sending out newsletters, I've been getting more and more auto replies from some random people with AI-generated gibberish replies that wasn't really needed. So this is a good prompt to have. Then do not create a draft for purely informational emails, updates, or messages that don't need a response. If a reply is needed, generate a clear, context-appropriate draft email and use the draft generator tool to create the email draft. Do not include AI message in the generated email draft, and if no reply is needed, return no reply needed. So now that we have the prompt, you can also add an additional option below. The option right here we're going to add is a system message. You can think of a system message like instructions on AI's personality or behavior. Basically how the AI should think or act, not about the specific task itself. So for this one, I'll also provide you with a message that I came up with within the video kit down below. It looks something like this. You are an AI assistant that helps draft professional and natural sounding replies to emails and message threads. Instructions are to read the following message or thread carefully, understands the sender intent, tone, and context, create a well-written draft reply that matches the sender's tone, addresses all the points, sounds natural and human, not robotic, and keeps the response concise and polite. We might as well add, it doesn't use the M dash, which is the double dash that we have right here, which AI often generates. Now you can save that. And then you want to connect it to a model. In this case, we can reuse the Google Gemini model we used before. So just search for Google Gemini chat model, and we'll use a 2.5 Flash. Now, an AI agent is more than just a text classifier that uses an AI model. It also has a memory and a tool. And a beautiful thing about memory here, a memory can be an entire MongoDB or Postgres database, but it can also be simple memory, like what we are going to use in this case. Where for the memory, I'll define it below, and we can simply provide a key of double pair of curly braces, $JSON dot thread ID. So this is the ID to the email we're talking about. And I'll go back to Canvas. It has a simple memory now. In this case, the tool will be coming from Gmail again. It's a Gmail tool. Specifically, I will rename it to Draft Generator, so it makes sense to set the resource to draft. For the subject, we'll use a pair of double curly braces and do $JSON.subject. This is where we stored the subject of that email. The email type will be set to text, and then for the message, we can actually use AI to generate it. So again, I'll open up an expression. I'll open it up in a larger editor so you can see what we're doing. And I'll say $, from AI, we want to get the output from AI. And then as the second parameter, we'll say reply draft generated by AI agent. So that is the description of this AI call. I'll go back. And then under additional options, we'll add a thread ID, which has to be dynamically populated. It's going to be $JSON dot thread ID. And then I'll add another option right here, which is going to be the to email. So who are we replying to? We're replying to the sender. So that's going to be, once again, a dynamic property of JSON.sender. And now we can test it out. I'll go back to the canvas. You can see that the last flow that was executed actually came into the newsletter. So we can try now sending two different emails. One that doesn't need a reply, but would still be considered a priority email. So I'll send an email to myself with the title of JSM priority, and it'll say, "Good day, I just want to inform you that I got the package today, thanks." This obviously doesn't need a response. So I'll send it. And in about a minute, if you reload your inbox, you'll see that it gets sorted out as priority. And if you go within it, you'll see that there's no drafted response. And now we'll test it out with an email that does need a response. So back within Gmail, I'll again email myself. Gotta find some friends. And the email again will be JSM priority. But this time I'll say something like, I updated the project scope today. When you get a chance, please review the document and let me know if you approve the changes. To this, we obviously have to say whether we do or do not approve the changes. So let's send it. It'll soon get labeled, but we're also hoping to get an email draft automatically created for us. Currently, our email polling is set to every minute, so you gotta wait about a minute and then head over to executions where you'll be able to see a new one happening in real time. It's there, but it looks like it doesn't have the AI agent, which means that I didn't yet save the entire workflow. That is very important. Always save it. So now if you unpin it, so it actually pulls the new data, and then go back to Canvas and re-execute it, you'll see that it's now running the AI agent. It's consulting with a simple memory, and it'll now start consulting with the draft generator, which then should prepare the draft if Google Gemini decides a draft is needed. But for some reason, it looks like AI agent thought we don't need to draft a reply. As you can see, this node wasn't contacted. So let's go into the AI agent and figure out why. Oh, looks like we weren't passing the right content into it. Instead of JSON content, we needed to pass the text of the email. So I'll pass it and re-execute this step. There we go. Now it consulted the draft generator, which hopefully gave us a valid response, but you're able to see that this JSON subject was read. And it was read because in the edit fields, I said headers.subject instead of simply using the subject. So you can remove the headers, and then here you can also remove the headers and just make it JSON.subject. Then back in the draft generator, you can set the tool description to set manually. I found this works better if you want to add a draft to an already existing email. And then here you can just keep JSON.subject, and we can give it a shot. I'll send myself a new email. So it's going to go to contact@jsmastery.com. I'll add the JSM priority in the title, and I'll say something like urgent. And then I'll say, hey, please reply, write me a poem. So let's see if AI complies with that. Now we'll send it, and we have to wait about a minute until the workflow gets re-triggered. So it properly labels it and hopefully writes a reply for it. But don't forget to save the workflow right here. Once you do that, you can wait here for the executions. It looks like it is just running for me right now. And now if you reload your inbox, you'll see it got labeled as priority. And even though there's no draft underneath it, there is one draft right here in our inbox. And indeed, it contains a poem. So it looks like the AI functionality is working, even though, of course, if we provided it more context in the email itself, the response would have been better. But I would have hoped to see this draft right below the email so we can auto-reply to it, not as a separate email. While creating this workflow, it is highly likely that we made a small typo, so it's not adding it properly. To make sure that you don't have any weird errors and that everything works 100% the same as it does for me, I'll download my workflow and share it with you in the video kit down below. So go over to your workflows, create a new one, and then go ahead and import it from a file. Choose the JSON that I provided. Make sure that everything is connected properly. The only difference that you'll have to do is you'll have to connect it to your Gmail account. So in a couple of these places, make sure to choose the right model and the right credential to connect with. It's here, here, maybe even here. Yep, here we're good. And in the AI agent, that's good. Under the emails, yep, it's using the right Gmail account, I hope. And make sure to give it the right label for each one. So that's going to be priority, monitoring, and then this one will be newsletter. And I think that's it. You can now set this one as active and save it. Whereas the one that we worked on, you can deactivate for now. This one should work perfectly. So let's go ahead and prep another email. In this case, I'll try to be as descriptive with my email, saying something like quick follow-up on the API rate limiting middleware. And I'll prep the entire email, saying something like, I've been running into some issues, would love your input before I start rewriting parts of it. Could you take a quick look and let me know what you think? And I'll send it. We'll see how good of a reply AI provides now. So head over to executions and let's wait. I think we can lower the time to every minute. So we can wait about a minute until it auto executes. And it is running. It looks like all the steps succeeded. So to check whether it actually worked, you can get back to your inbox and check this out. We got a new email, which is a priority, which I don't really want to check out or respond to right now, but I need to because it's priority. But check this out. Our n8n workflow provided a meaningful response, saying that I'll take a look at it and get back to you as soon as I have an update. So now this lonely developer, in this case Adrian, can go to sleep knowing that the senior developer will take a look at it and respond back when they have time. The only thing you have to do is take a look, modify it if needed, and just click send. Wonderful. This means that you've successfully implemented one of your first n8n workflows that makes managing our emails just a bit easier. You can turn it into a SaaS app or market it. There's really a lot of potential with this. And as I told you a couple of times before, the sky is the limit. With n8n, you can create so many detailed workflows, allowing you to automate literally any part of your life. So what's the next manual task that you want to automate? Let me know down in the comments. Now it's up to you and your imagination. Because if a workflow can handle it, I don't want to be handling it, and you shouldn't either. I hope this video gave you some practical ideas to automate smarter, not harder, and showed you just how much easier your daily tasks can become with a few simple workflows. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day.